Number 10 is absolutely the most expensive of its kind. It is Blue Eyes White Dragon. This card's a little bit ridiculous just from the fact that it's a video game promo. Sure, if you bust out a copy of Falsebound Kingdom and try to bring out one of the cards from there, you're probably looking at like $3 or no money whatsoever, but Dark Duel Stories is a game that not many people bought, and many fewer people still have the cards to. The promos are really hard to find in good condition. The same can be said for Dark Duel Stories Dark Magician. However, as these cards can become more or less meta-relevant, it actually matters for their price. Like, Blue Eyes White Dragon starts off the list at $1,000, approximately, but it does hover by a few hundred. A lot of other cards in this list, they're either never printed again, or they're not affected by the secondary market as much, so they just kind of stick or they rise over time. So this could be out of date next week. Who knows? But either way, Blue Eyes White Dragon at $1,000, that's pretty ridiculous on starting off the list. Oh, wow, I was just talking about Falsebound Kingdom, but this one's the Spanish version specifically that has one of the most expensive cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! This is the Falsebound Kingdom's Spanish Sinister Serpent. And if you really want me to absolutely just embarrass myself, here we go. Durante tu standby phase, si esta carta está en el cementerio, puedes devolverla a tu mano. Everyone who speaks Spanish in the audience, please tell me how I got the minutia incorrect. I speak Portuguese, not Spanish. It's just kind of close enough. I'm sure the accent was off. But either or, this card is, well, only released in Spain? Not only only released in Spain, but also only released in the Falsebound Kingdom specifically, one of the worst Yu-Gi-Oh games. You can fight me on that. This game sucks. But in either case, the game was a complete colossal failure in Spain, which made this card specifically a ridiculous price because, 5 people bought the game. So the super rare Serpiente Siniestra exists very, very scarcely. Finding this card in good condition is absolutely ridiculous. This card is looking at about $1,200, which I mean is a little bit crazy. But also, we're going off averages here. I'm sure if you had near mint, it would look something like $5K. Number 8. This one's a doozy. If you ever go on the top 100 cards on Yu-Gi-Oh! Prices, I do on every occasion just to see where the most expensive actual meta cards are, you can look at some cards and go, why? This is one of them. This is Vice Dragon. This card was never meant to exist. It's also ultra rare. So, in Japan, a dual-disc Yusei toy was released which included a promo which was, Vice Dragon in ultra rare, which is pretty cool. It's a Jack Atlas card. It was to be released in English with, the English version of Vice Dragon, but there's a problem. I assume that this card was issued a recall because its release was, in fact, cancelled, and the vast majority of Vice Dragons were taken out of vendors' hands. And, the dual discs with them. So this card is packaged in with a dual disc that was never released, and is more than likely just sitting in a warehouse somewhere. A bunch of them. Look around in every warehouse. If you live downtown of any sort of major city, just look around. You might find every single Vice Dragon, and you can make, your entire family go and get a doctorate degree? What would they even be? We have to do some quick multiplication on that. I don't know how many exist, but this card can vary from $500 to $1,500. Many approaching the top end of that. The 500 one it's one of those damaged ones that just, obviously was in a bike spoke at some point, which honestly really hurts. Also, fun fact before I move on, this card is actually legal. It was never officially released, but it's actually legal. You don't need to have an extra copy of the card next to it, anything. You're fine. It's just a real card for all intents and purposes, even though Konami looked at it and said no. Number 7 is our first collaborative spot on this list. This is every legal YCS prize card. And there are a lot of different ones that we can talk about, from Blood Mephis to Drescentian Sky Dragon to the Chaos Emperor Dragon Pendulum, but what matters is, all of them are still pretty expensive as prize cards, even though they're all reprinted in Battles of Legend Armageddon. Except Blood Mephist. Probably because it has blood in its name. This is kind of terrible. I don't get it. I don't understand it, especially since in the dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, it was named Crimson Mephist. So the thing about this is that many of these cards go to around 1500, so it can really be interchangeable between this and the Vice Dragon of last. But what's cool about it is that it has so many! Also, why is Blood Mephist not brought over here? Just call it Crimson Mephist. I love that card. I used to play it in Dragonities instead of making Stardust Dragon. You just make your opponent burn, play Black Garden, and then they just have nothing. They can't kill Blood Mephist, and you just flip over a Mask of Restrict. That was good. That was just what you needed to do back in, like, what was it, 2013? Thanks, Battles of Legend Armageddon. You're cool. Number 6 is a bit of a funky one. These are the Replica match winners. They're a select branch of match winners that were selected to be reprinted a year after their original copies as a lower rarity. These cards are easier to get as copies of the original are, you know, a lot more expensive. Don't worry, we'll get to them. And you can get them if you're a collector and say you have them, and you can kind of cry yourself at least a little bit less to sleep at night. In 2011, a tsunami happened in Japan, and among the wreckage, the majority of Stardust Divinity copies were destroyed, so only 50 on record are said to be in circulation, which is ridiculous to me. Some of the most expensive cards in Yu-Gi-Oh!, and they were just washed away. You have no idea how much that is. I have no idea. What, like $500,000? Like, that's a lot to be lost in a natural disaster. Like what, that's like 10% of the whole wreckage? This explains why the card falls out of circulation and you don't really see it on eBay, but other replicas are a lot more available, considering, you know, they weren't hit by God himself. So, really this list can be a lot of other cards, but to be a bit more particular, it can go around 200 to 2,000 with Chimera, the Master of Beasts, being extremely low in price, but the peak is of course Stardust Divinity, around $5,000. We have gotten past the point of, like, you know, used cars. These are good used cars that we're talking about here. This is a whole year's worth of rent to a lot of people, and it's going to Stardust Divinity. Just think of that for a second. Number 5, you may think it's a repeat of what we were talking about, but no, these are the legal YCS prize cards! But they're an ultra rare, as opposed to the super rares that we were talking about previously. These are essentially the super rares, but, you know, just ultra rare. That's the whole thing, and there's less of them. That's the entire idea. The precise number of these cards in circulation is completely unknown, but, you know, we know it's pretty low because you're going to see these a lot less than you're going to see a Skellingle in someone's bulk. These cards can vary, and since I've already talked about them, a lot of them can... These cards vary quite rapidly in price, but since they are legit the ultra rares, they go from $1,750 to over $6,500, removing a few outliers and just giving benefit of the doubt on it. $6,500! Come on, you can just buy them for $1,500, or, you know, like $3 out of Battles of Legend Armageddon. Feels bad, man. Looking at Giant Hand or the Dragon of Armageddon and going, huh, yeah, I have those in my deck. And your opponent's like, oh yeah, I have those in my deck, but they're $1. You just have to cry about that. You just gotta cry about it. Number 4, different kind of prize cards. These are Shonen Jump. You may know Shonen Jump as that magazine that prints out, you know, Dragon Ball Z and One Piece, and it just refuses to print Hunter x Hunter. Dear God, I just got through the Chimera Ant arc by the time I'm recording this video, and if you haven't, go watch Hunter x Hunter. It's a ridiculously good show. I have a tattoo from it for a reason, and I intend on getting more, because boy howdy, this might just be my favorite show. I'm gonna be completely real with you. Kinda sad that we're in the Great Hiatus arc. Either or, what was I talking about? Oh right, Shonen Jump! So, this was actually what YCSs were before YCSs. Fun fact. These are some of the earliest tournaments that we're talking about. We're talking like early 2000s, like 2005 sort of deal. So when we talk about these cards, which ones are we talking about specifically? Well, there are only 40 copies of Cyberstein and Crush Card Virus ever made. Other cards include Doom Caliber Knight, Shrink, Gold Sarcophagus, Days of Olsgalf, and Doom End Dragon. Finding one of these limited prints in good condition at a good price is more of an adventure than a quest. You don't know where you're gonna get at the end of it, but I'll tell you right now, you're gonna have fun looking for thousands of dollars worth of card. It's kind of ridiculous. The values of these cards can vary between $2,500 for stuff like Des Volskalf, while Cyberstein is picking it up at number 1, going above $8,000 damn near every time it's listed on eBay. That's so whack. Like, we're talking like, the $8,000 is enough to do quite a bit. You just slam that bitch in the stock market and, you know, that's like $10,000 or $2,000. And you know what? $2,000 is a really good deal. How do you make $2,000 really quickly? Start with 10. The bronze medal. The bronze medal is ironically going to the second place match winners. I hope that's not confusing. Either or, these cards exist in ultra rare. Except, you know, the Link monsters, which are Parallel Secret. They're not exactly Starlight, they're Parallel Secret. It's pretty cool, actually. And only 6 copies in the entire world exist. Only one of each card's 6 copies is available to the public because the 6th copy is owned by Konami in a vault somewhere kept as a record. You know how Tyler the Great Warrior has, you know, 3 copies. One's with the Konami CEO, one's with Tyler, and one's in a vault. Either or, they're called match winners because, well, their effects are to literally win the match, like Victory Dragon! Except they all say, except Victory Dragon, this card cannot be used in a duel. That's why I had to describe the other prize cards as legal prize cards. You know, it's a bit of a funky one. These cards can only be used by getting the almost highest position in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championships 2nd place. You have to see that main stage, and you have to have your soul crushed. So what do you get for it? Well, they vary from 3,000 to 30,000 as about an average, but the highest that I've seen is Grizzly the Red Star Beast, and that is for $31,888. I don't even know how to compare that. I think that's more money than I've seen in my entire life. All at once, definitely. Jesus Christ, Grizzly the Red Star Beast, what are you? Who is buying this? Like, it actually was sold at this number. It's ridiculous. But either or, we can move on to number 2, the 1st place match winners. Well, what's above 1st place, you may ask? Hey. You ain't skipping the video. Come on. This is the 2nd place. Come on, you'll get to number 1 soon. Keep watching, alright? Cool. I love you. Either or. These cards exist in ultra rare, except the links, which are in Parallel Secret, just like the 2nd place, but they are, you know, the 1st place ones. They're in, you know, different, because they're the 1st place ones. It's a little bit hard to tell what the differences are at a glance, but you know, if you're willing to spend $30,000 on a card, you probably can figure out the minutia of that sort of shit. The values of these cards can range from $7,500 to $35,000, which is absolutely ridiculous. But not as ridiculous as, of course, our number 1. Our number 1 is a card that you may have assumed. And before we get to our number 1, I want to bring up some honorable mentions before they're brought up in chat, because I just really do want to talk about them. The first honorable mention is the World Championship 2003 Victory Dragon and Blacklister Soldier. So, we have Victory Dragon and Blacklister Soldier, not just a match winner, but also a card with really cool art. These were the cards for topping the Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship 2003. You know, there was a 1st place prize card and there was another 1st place prize card. A little bit weird, but okay, I'm glad we fixed that system. But also, these cards are completely unknown in value and in, well, where they are in the world. They're just entirely lost. Whoever has them is pretty much the only person on Earth that knows where they are, which is a little ridiculous to think. Like, this might be used to be, like, balance on a loan, but they're an integral piece of Yu-Gi-Oh! History? I don't get it, but I really wish that these would surface again, if only so that we knew that they still existed. The other honorable mention is 1999 Blacklister Soldier. Yes, we had him on here twice for different reasons. Oh, and other legendary cards. The authenticity of these cards are completely unconfirmed, and they may just be legends, they may not be real at all. No one's seen them, apparently. It's a my dad works at Konami sort of deal. These didn't make the list because for all we know they could be fake, since we have no idea if they exist. The Blacklister Soldier was awarded during the 1999 Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship in Japan. The card itself is said to be printed on stainless steel rather than traditional cardstock. I have no idea how to even think of this because allegedly, these are not confirmed because there have been no sales, but allegedly, this card could go from anywhere between $10 million and $12 million. You have never seen this much money in your life. I don't care who's watching this. If you've seen $12 million, I'm so happy that you're on my channel. Please share the wealth. I just need 100 to make sure that I can get one of these cards. You know what I mean. I'm just doing a big jokey joke. But yeah, if you've had $12 million, how much money do you have to spend $12 million on a fucking steel-plated World Championship Yu-Gi-Oh card? Well, you gotta have $1 billion in the bank, right? You have to. Number one is, of course, the undisputable rarest card in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Obtained by and named after a name legendary in the franchise, Tyler Gressel. Diagnosed with a rare form of liver cancer, the Make-A-Wish Foundation caught wind of the Gressel family's battle against his cancer and invited to meet 4Kids officials who created for him the one and only, except for the Konami executive and the Vault thing, copy of Tyler the Great Warrior. This is one of the most common stories to hear in Yu-Gi-Oh! One of the most, well, uplifting ones to hear in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because Gressel made a full recovery. The card itself resembles future Trunks straight out of Dragon Ball, and probably would have been followed by lawsuits if it was ever actually deadass printed in a set. Not just because of copyright, but also because the dude has the only one in existence, pretty much. We don't have a price on how much it would actually be sold for, but we have known that Tyler Gressel was offered $75,000 to sell his card, but he declined it. So, honestly, a lot of estimations put this card anywhere between $150,000 and $300,000. But that is also assuming that Tyler would give up the world for this. Because, I mean, this is the card that signifies that he beat cancer. That, you know, he was someone who could make a card in Yu-Gi-Oh! That's something that a lot of people just aren't able to say that they've done. Like, you have to either work at Konami or work out the anime. That's about it. So, Tyler Gressel, more power to you. Here's to you having the most expensive card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Named after you, and also, hopefully somewhere safe. Please don't put it in a bike spoke. That'd physically hurt me.